You know it.
That's what we are. That's what we are.
Not me.
I've been called other things. We worked far too much.
Good thing we have a bunch of lovely people here, right?
I don't know where Miss Brown was. She only went, I thought she went across the way.
All our students are not well, so you can not be able to
She
go in.
probably got distracted. So, I'm gonna get started. Good evening and welcome to our CET meeting. I am going to be covering a few things. If you look at the agenda items, we'll be talking about the Demonstrable Improvement Indicators. And then we will reference a dictionary, we have definitions for what all those indicators actually mean. And then we will talk about our next steps. And then we can follow up with any questions, any concerns, or any suggestions that anyone may have. And do a tentative agenda for our next meeting. So the Demonstrable Improvement Indicators, I prepared a sheet for you, and they are, hi, how are you, Ms. Johnson? They are listed on a one-pager. Yours would be a black and white sheet of paper. And I have them listed with the first level 1 indicators listed first. And the level 1 indicators were assigned by the state. And they are as follow. If you want to follow along with me, I'll just read them off. We have school safety. We have grades 3 through 8 ELA, all students. MGP, we have 3 through 8 math, all students. We have 3 through 8 ELA, all students core index performance indicator. 3 through 8 math, all students core subject performance index. We also have grades 4 and 8 science, all core students core student performance index. We have 3 through 8 chronic absenteeism for all students. And then we have grades 3 through 8 ELP, which stands for English Language Proficiency. Success ratio for all students. And then the next set of indicators are level 2 indicators. And those start with the plan for and implement community school model, the family and community engagement, which is our tenet 6 from the school comprehensive educational plan. And then we have a sub group, which is grades 3 through 8 ELA, black core subject performance index. And then the last one is grades 3 through 8 ELA. ED is for economically disadvantaged subject performance index. So those are a total of 13 demonstrable improvement indicators that we are considering to focus on for the tenure of our receivership, which will not be long because we are going to hone in on these different indicators, define what they really mean. For example, if you look at another paper that I prepared for you, this is the definitions of all the different indicators, and they're coded with the number. So if you notice on the sheet I gave you, it has the indicator code. All the indicator codes are going to be located in this left column, the far left column on your definition sheet. So once you find the code, then you'll find the indicator. So that first one was school safety. So when you look at school safety description, defines this as the school violence index. It's calculated by multiplying the counts of incidents reported in the educational climate. The summary data collection formed by the weight for that incident category and summing of those products. The incidents included in this is a whole equation. So these are some of the incidents or types of behaviors that were accrued with students in the 2017-18 school year. So things such as, and not to say that we have these kinds of things going on, but these are the kinds of things that would result in some safety type of behavior. So homicide, we haven't had homicide. That's the number one, forcible sexual offense, other sex offense, assault, physical injury, assault, serious physical injury, weapons possession only, routine security checks, maybe when a weapon might have been found, any other material incidents such as discrimination, harassment, and or bullying or cyberbullying. Those are the type of incidents that get recorded through our VADAR system, and then they weight them and they rank them, and they do this here equation that I started describing here, and it gives us so many points. And if we're high on that Richter's point, it puts us as listed as a school that is at risk for safety. And we know that we did have a middle school population. We did have security systems, and oftentimes they were bringing in all kinds of contraband. And anytime we find anything through the scanner, even if it was something accidental, we have to treat it as if though, it was something with intent. And once we find out what the story is, the penalty may be swift or not, depending on the conditions, but we do, try and triage those, and we have to document them. So we did have a lot of, different incidents that happened that had us in that area where we were considered at school safety. So that's one. And then if you look at 33 for grades 3 through 8 ELA all students, this particular one is just looking at the growth mean percentile. So the MGP is the mean growth percentile for continuously enrolled students. So any students who are enrolled and we have them recorded on Beds Day, as well as the same students who are administered a test and are tested on the day of ELA and or math test, those are those students that we are looking at their mean scores. And based on our data, again, for 3 years of weighted averages from 2015-16, 2016-17, and 2017-18. That data was looked at, and in those 3 years, that revealed us as persistently struggling in ELA. And we were cited for math too, so equally the same definition. Same thing for science, grades 4 and 8. It doesn't necessarily mean both grades were a problem. It could have just been one.
Could have been
right?
0%.
And absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's how we ended up getting cited there. And again, it's on a 3-year scale from 2015-16 school year all the way up to our last school year, looking at that data. Same thing as you look at the next one. When you look at the chronic absenteeism, that is coded as 160. So if you flip over the page, you'll see that about midway. And chronic absenteeism rate is for the number of students enrolled in grades K through 8 during the school year in the school for a minimum of 10 instructional days. Then they're on our enrollment. And then the attendance is then monitored with absences such as excused and or unexcused for at least 10% of the enrolled instructional days delivered by the total number of students enrolled during the school year, expressed as a percentage. So when we look at the school year, we were looking at 2017-18, and we did have a higher percentage of chronic absenteeism. Again, when you look at the ELP success ratio, that is coded as number 180. When you go to number 180, we're looking at students of English language learners, English language proficiency as marked by the New York State English and Second Language Achievement Test, also known as NISLAT. The students have not showed a continuous success ratio. So we were cited there again too, okay? And so just to give you a gist of what those mean. Let's jump into what the plan for and implement community school model looks like. That is coded as number 2, and it's still on the same page. If you look, you will see basically the school receives a satisfactory score on the community school model implementation rubric. So we're looking to get more information on what those components will look like and what are some things that we will be doing as a team to evolve on some of those components. It's almost like they do like a phase, and you have to have so many of the things accomplished on the checklist. And so we will be focused on doing the community school model in addition to the family and community engagement model and engagement tenet 6. And tenet 6 deals with the school creates a culture of partnership. So again, if we're community school, there's a strong correlation with partnerships. And then you're looking at community members and school staff working together to share in the responsibility for student achievement. And I cannot say enough for student academic achievement, progress, and social emotional growth and well-being. And together, collectively, we'll be discussing different ways that we will be doing that. And both of those components, those indicators run very much in sync. And it'd be very likely that we'd be killing two birds with one stone with some of the goals that we would be achieving, which would also, some of the rationale behind being able to achieve the last two performance indicators, the ELA Black core subject and the ELA economically core subject. Those are subsets of the indicators 33, which is ELA all students. And if we make that target, we will have made the targets for ELA Black core students and 3 through 8 ELA economically disadvantaged core students. And we won't be focusing on anything through 8th grade. It's strictly 3 through 6. I just want to be clear with that. And all our data from here on out, we'll be looking at our current student data 3 through 6. And we are looking to show growth. We have some baselines. Also, if you look at the school baseline and you look at the state baseline, we fall much shorter than the state baseline. And normally when you're falling shorter than the state baseline, that means that you are struggling. So that's how they compare how we are doing. And we're compared with all the Big Five schools, Syracuse, Buffalo, Yonkers, New York, and of course, big old Rochester. So we have to move our students' growth, and our baselines are projected to be like a percent of a point. So, for example, if you look at school, actually, let's look at ELA and all students. That is a 40 for our school baseline. What we need to get into 2018-19 is a 41. So that's like 0.1% to move our students. It could be 5 students, it could be 10 students, but collectively of all students grades 3 through 6. And so we have different targets that we're looking to reach and show growth from where we were compared to where we have traveled from year to year. So we'll be compared with our data for this school year compared to last year. Some of our components, such as the community school model and the family community engagement model, these this year will be our planning year. So we won't really have comparison data. So we'll be planning on things that we want to do, and that plan will be pretty much like documentation and evidence of what we are planning to do. And then the next year we will be measuring how we're doing in those particular areas. And then I want to talk to you about code number 94. If you can look at code number 94, that one description is providing 200 hours of extended day learning time. This one is not the extended day learning model that you're thinking of, where we would have a before or after school. With this particular one, we're looking to do little short bursts of programming and academic support for our students on off-peak seasons. And so we only need to service about 50% of our students beyond the normal school day. We're already in a good place because normally we're only required to have 180 days. Our district is doing a very good job with adding more days, 185, 186. And so those are considered as extra hours. Our students are here for 6 hours. Normally instructional school days should be 5 hours. So that's another extra hour. And so just looking at the map and the bigger picture, it looks at about probably maybe 20, 25 hours of additional time that we'd be looking to service at least 50% of our students. So it doesn't have to be every student, it doesn't have to be every day, but it's serving that population accumulating at least 50% of the students receiving some additional extended learning time throughout the course of the school year. So it could be weekends, it could be school breaks, we can do things like a summer camp, we may even have a partnership with someone in the community who wants to do something with our students, and then we would kind of connect and collaborate to do something that will revolve around that academic piece there. So that's what the ELT piece looked like. Very doable. Something that we can do with the focused, deliberate effort to plan for that additional instruction.
Could we put that inside of our ATS room as well?
As long as it's beyond like that normal hour, you can.
Okay.
Yes. And we can use the whole building. There's no limit. We can do it anywhere, pretty much any time, as long as it's not conflicting with our normal regular hours. So we will be fine with that. So like, say we had February recess, and we wanted to do 2 or 3 days of just some extended time with the students, that would count.
Okay.
And those hours would add up to about 200 hours. And so we've already got some of these hours already absorbed without doing anything already. Okay, any questions about any of the performance indicators?
So the indicator levels 1 and levels 2, these are the ones that you were told by the state you
Yes.
have to follow, and
Yes.
the 2 are the ones that you chose.
Yes, based on our school data. We did a lot of data dives, looking at the students' data for both ELA and math. We looked at trends over the last 3 years and looked at what was more doable in comparison to some of the indicators that we already had. And one of the beautiful things about this is that there are a lot of subgroups. So when you see subgroups, they are a part of our larger groups, like for example, 3 through 8 ELA. That's all students, but the subgroups could be L students, it could be Hispanic students, it could be Black students, it could be white students, it could be Asian students, students with disabilities. So from that type of drill down, you really are able to look at your data and see who's more likely to, with some deliberate additional support, who we can move. And so that's how that kind of works. And with the community school model, that is something that I believe all the receivership schools are doing as a district. That is a decision from the district, and it just makes so much sense to align it with the Tenet 6 because they're very much aligned anyways, and so that's where those kind of came from. Any other questions?
I'm just curious, for things that we already have data on, like absenteeism,
Yes.
the school safety, do you know how we're doing in that area? Have we really looked at anything and seen what kind of growth
As a
we
matter of
have?
fact, that's good news. We're actually doing really good with school safety. We haven't had the magnitude of incidents that we have had last year. In fact, our suspension is low. Our school climate behavior is down. In comparison, the middle school has a big heavy lift for us. Being in this building has been a heavy lift for us, and so we're in a good place as it looks at for school safety. And then the other piece, you asked about chronic absenteeism. Well, we actually have an attendance team, and we meet weekly, and we are really targeting those ones that are chronic and really just kind of being really aggressive with trying to find out where they are, working with families. We even have like the excuse now. We have an excuse template. So when students are out absent, we encourage parents to, fill out the excuse and do excuse absence. We even send home communications, encouraging them to do appointments during breaks, before school, after school, those kinds of things to help to alleviate the excessive attendance, absenteeism rate. So we've also done incentives for attendance. So I think that compared to last year, this time this year, we look way better in comparison. And if we continue at this rate by June,
Those two areas.
Yes,
we
those
really
two
have some
areas
good
would have
success in.
shown some growth. Yeah. And so if they would compare last year to this year, we've already gained the percentage point, which I'll explain how that all adds up to in a second after we answer any questions. Anybody else? That was a good question. So how are the points going to be added up? So all of these are going to be on a 100-point scale, right? And so each one of course, the top 8 will be more heavier weighted than the 2, just because they're level 1 indicators. But once the superintendent gives this the official approval and say, okay, yep, this is it, this is great, this makes sense, then all of these will be given a percentage of a point out of the 100, right? So this could be 10%, this could be 10%, this could be 5, this could be 12, so on and so forth. And so out of that, we need to make at least 67% out of the 100 in order to have shown improvement. So collectively, we should have made a 67% accrual of percentage of points for all of the indicators combined in order to have demonstrated improvement. And that's how the state does the math. Very interesting. It gets even more sophisticated when you look at the number of students that you need to get for ELA to move to that 0.1%. And so those are conversations that administrators will be having with teachers about their personal students' data. Out of your students that you have right now in front of you, you have some 1s, some kids who scored 1s. Hi, how are you? Some 1s, 2s, 3s, or maybe even 4s on the ELA or math assessment. So we do the estimating, based on what we have, based on what they scored, who do we need to target to move these scores? So you're not going to get a kid who got a 0 to get a 4. And maybe not even a 1 to get a 4. So you realistically look at your students, you look at your student data, you look at trend data, and I have tons of data that I will be sharing with teachers in the upcoming year of what students have typically scored in the past on their ELA and math scores. And we can look at their attendance, because they need to have at least 85% attendance in order to really have received the instruction to be solid. They also need to have perform fairly well on the NWEA and the Ames Web. We do those assessments. Those are benchmark assessments. We do them, 3 times a year. We do them in the fall, we do them in the winter, and we do them in the spring. And the NWEA data is a predictor of how students will do. And we use the NWA to kind of target some progress monitoring and different supports that students would need. If they need help with comprehension, then there's a track for that. If they need help with main idea and so on and so forth, then we kind of track them and provide that support for them. So that's the kind of intense work that we're going to be doing, starting as early as summer PD, for in August, to start setting up teachers in a way to be informed about the data of their student population and to use that data to drive the instruction and to really target our students that we need to move, to be really deliberate about that, because we get scores for those students. So any students who get a 2, a 3, or a 4, they get points, okay? And so with that, we take those points, we add them up, and we do like a ratio based on the number of students we have that tested and that were enrolled on Beds Day, and that kind of gives us like our percentage. This is what we need to get in order to move our kids. And so like I said, we'll be doing deeper data dives specifically with 3rd grade teachers, one-on-one specifically with 4th grade teachers, 5th grade teachers, and 6th grade teachers, because we want to be very clear about what it is that each and every individual child needs in order to show some growth. Strategic with that as we began the school year next year, but just focus instruction for
Miss
math
Angie, call the main
and
office,
ELA.
please. Miss Angie.
Not to mention, all the other core subjects will be infused in that for the most part, but really trying to focus on making sure that the students are learning. And it's not really all about the tests, but they are learning to read, and they are learning to write, and they are learning math and able to do computation and use this in the real world so that they can be academically sound and utilize those skills to be proficient. So we want to go beyond just the tests, but unfortunately that is what is used to measure how we do. And so we want to encourage our families to be in support of that, because that is the data that we are defined by. That is the data that defined us as receivership, and we showed up as persistently struggling in both ELA and math. And so we're planning on doing things differently. Get back to the core, tier 1, best practices, solid rituals and routines, making sure that every ounce of the day is maximized with instruction. Just really being more specific to doing what we used to do when children were learning. Yes.
I wanted to ask a question about the community part.
Yes.
And I know we're in the planning phases of those. Are we looking at community partnerships that exist in our building? Do we
No.
get a certain amount of ratio
Oh
points
no,
for that?
it's limitless.
Okay.
It's limitless. So it's whomever is interested in us and whomever we are interested in, and we can make a partnership. The sky's the limit. So it could be infinity and beyond.
Just wanted to know that. 'Cause
Oh yes.
I didn't know if it was a set of
Oh,
points
no.
that you get
Oh,
for
no.
being in your site. Or,
Oh no, whatever we need or whatever we can get, really. I mean,
So, to add to that, being that you said that we keep track of that, being that I did receive the paper for the summer camp this
Okay,
year.
yes.
I would love to take on our 2nd and 3rd and 4th graders,
Okay.
the targeted ones with the number
Yes.
1s and 0s.
Yes.
Not to say that we can't take on other kids,
Mm-hmm.
but if that's something that we can do over the summer, I actually run a summer camp called Breaking All Barriers. It's an educational summer camp, but it's educational and play as well. We do things like we turn relays into reading relays and vocabulary, like they 4 on a team, they go take at one end the word different is at over there, and they have to unscramble it, and then the next person has to come back and use it in a sentence, and then the next person will spell it in sign language, because we teach sign language as well. So it's a day full of fun, but also a day full of learning. And if we could take some of our youth that are at 0s and 1s over the summer to help build their skills, so it can help put us in a place where it's helpful for the teachers throughout the school year, so they're not starting from ground
we do
zero,
have that slippery
and then
slope.
we can do that. So once we get the data that's needed,
Yes.
because I wanted to start enrollment going back into the end of May. So if we can know who those youth are before I just open it out to anyone, I would like to
Target them
take,
first.
and so if we can know how many students we need to get that percentage, we can take those youth for that. And we do it for reading and math, so
that's really good.
so I think if we could do, it is going to be here. I actually received a letter 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, that it was done. So I think it will be great. I did school number 29 last year, and Mr. Baldino gave me some really good feedback. So I would love to do it here at 16.
Excellent. So we've been trying to make that.
Yeah, you guys did it. I received the email a week and a half ago, so that's awesome.
Persistence and perseverance.
Yes.
Thank you so
So
much.
this will be great. Yes.
So that'd be awesome. And that's the type of, extended learning beyond the school day, continuing learning over the summer, so that our kids are not losing all the hard work that we're doing throughout the school year. Because I know that they do lose a lot over the summer. And if we could keep that continuity there, that would make a difference too.
Are we able to use any of that time towards,
I don't
One
know.
of the indicators?
I look into that, because there is a possibility. That is a possibility. Yes, and even if there was something that would be available during recess.
Right, that's what we
That
would
would
love
be
to build
even
it. At the
better.
last minute, we were
Yes.
talking, Ms. Brown, yourself and I were talking about trying to get something in there to help
Yes.
the youth study, but it was so last
Short
minute. But we
time,
would
yes.
love to do it over the breaks, because
Yes,
that's
we could do
something
that.
our organization wanted to expand in.
Oh, yes.
And we can also, because usually if those kids are struggling in reading and math, they're usually the absentee kids as well.
Yes.
So if we can build that relationship with parents and help the teachers with that, so we can follow up on them, because our organization it's an all-around community program. So that would be awesome. We'll find a way to build that in there.
Oh, excellent. Very good. Perfect.
So, one of the things that we've been trying to talk about since I did KBA, and one of the things that we struggle with was getting physicals and having kids get physicals. And so one of the things that I've been trying to move into is trying to find a way in which we can bypass the difficulties where parents had to go to someplace. And that was a tough piece. They had to go get an appointment. So Ms. Brown and I are working on trying to have them come to us. And if they come to us, I've got 2 connections right now that will allow for registered nurses to come to us to be able to do those physicals and be able to do it in a way where it's fast. It doesn't have to wait. And that means that we're looking at the whole child. Dental, we're looking at the whole child, looking at wellness for us as a staff. So those are the moments that I'm moving into where looking at grants that allow for us and the kids to benefit from it. So looking at the parents, staff, as well as the kids. And ultimately what's happened is that these people who have wanted to been in our building for a while, but they never had the invitation. And now with this unlimited partnership, availability, we're on the phone, and I'm keeping Ms. Brown in the circle of it, but I'm trying to keep you guys in the circle of it as well, but they want to be here, and we want these things. So I'm really excited because Common Ground Health is one of those people who are going to be coming in, and it's looking very positive, where we're looking at 4 or 5 of their people coming in. And Ms. Brown and I have been working tirelessly to try to get this to happen, and it's going to come to fruition, so we're really excited about that.
Very good. Anybody else? Any suggestions, questions? Okay, so we will talk a little bit more about our next steps and what does this all mean and what does this all look like. And so again, just really processing the requirements, the criteria that we need to meet will be the evolution. We'll be waiting for the superintendent to finalize the indicators. But our next steps will really be at taking deeper dives in these. What does it look like? What are the phases? Developing a checklist, if you will, of the things that we need to do to move in the direction to set ourselves up for the 2019-20 school year to actually meet these targets. Because that year will be another year added on to show our growth. And so each year will be compared to the previous year. And so we'll just continue to kind of reset, look at the targets, look at what we made the baseline or not, but we will, and then continue the path on making those gains.
If we hit or exceed the baseline, now do they take that indicator off and give us a different indicator?
No.
It just
we
comes
keep
out
the same. Yep, we keep the same indicator for the 3-year term.
Okay.
And really, it's like 2 solid years that's going to get you
Yeah.
off that list. So if we do really, really good, like 2 years, we're in a really good position to be removed off that list. And so that's the thing, is to keep that trend going, keep the pattern going, get ourselves set, knowing what the baseline is and meeting the baseline. And really, like I said, digging deeper data dives with teachers and support staff to see what does this really look like for ELA? What does this really look like for math? And if we are to jigsaw it, and like I said, break it down for every grade level, every child, and then bring it back together again, we've got the plan, and everyone has the message. Pretty much. Okay. So that's pretty much what we'll be doing, and we'll just be waiting for that to pretty much happen. The rubric for the community school model has yet to come. The family and community engagement, there is like a phase that you look at, and it's like 4 phases, I think it is. And it really just kind of gives you an idea of what do you need to do for year 1, and how much of it do you need to have. So it might be 90% of it, or it might be another 10% in this area, and then year 2, it might be 95% of certain. It's like a checklist for the most part. And like I said, once we get closer to really doing something with it, it'll be more meaningful for you, and you'll have a better understanding of what that means. But I think an overall big picture would be much easier right now and not as overwhelming with all the data that we have. Okay. Good. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions or concerns, let's look at our calendars and see if we can set up a new date for our next meeting and kind of do like a tentative agenda. We are really kind of like April, May right now. So I don't know how you all feel about meeting towards the end of the month, but I do want to caution you that there is a holiday at the end of the month. And so our month is going to be kind of shortened. So that last week probably won't be the best week to meet. But I don't think that we really have that much information that we need to meet in May, that we can probably wait until June to meet, because we'll probably have more information and more of a focus going into the summer. So how does everybody feel about waiting until June to meet? Or do you feel like you would want to meet for May and just talk about this again and maybe any new news, or do you think June would be enough to kind of, okay, all right, so do we have a consensus for June? Okay,
Good.
all right, so let's look at our calendars. Would you all, yeah, I think Mondays are great. What do you think, Mondays are great?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's stick with Mondays. Let's see, June, right?
Maybe either the 3rd or the 10th,
Yeah, the
towards the
3rd.
beginning, since
I
the
can't
end
do the
gets-
10th, I can do the 3rd.
All right,
You did it there.
let's do the 3rd. Do you want to get it out the way? Because it's going to be a very busy month in June. And, let's get it out the way, June 3rd. All in favor? Any nays? June 3rd it is. 5 o'clock, okay?
Yes.
All right, so we have a date. Yes.
So they don't just give us a chance to, another 3 years
We
out or
did.
something.
Yeah, we did, because we were priority school from 2015 to 16.
We had 7th and 8th grade and this thing now.
Right, well, the way it works, so say, for example, your first, say we're a school in good standing. No problems, your students are making their metrics, 95% of your students are testing, you got a good student ratio. of students who are passing math, you're fine, your school is going to continue to be in good standing. But that first year, you have that dip, you have that drop, that raises a concern for you now to be a school that is, either a priority school. They used to call them different names. A school in need of improvement, they would call them SIR schools, but they changed it and it became like priority schools. And so you became a priority school. You can either continue to be a priority school, or you can go back into good standing. But that next year, after you became a priority school, you needed to have made that shift in one direction or the other. Most people do not make the direction in, good standing. They usually continue to be struggling. So that's year 2. So that's 2 years of struggling, right? So you're a priority school. That 3rd year, you have still another chance to go back to good standing, and you're in good standing. And so you're not a school who's being watched by the radar. But then on that next 3rd year, and you're a school who still don't meet your matrix, and you're now still a priority school after that 3rd year, you're more likely to become a receivership school, because you were a school who was persistently struggling for 2 or more years.
So it doesn't matter if we share the building with another school.
Nope.
And
No,
got
because-
the 2 separate
no.
grades.
Or that we had
Doesn't
middle
matter.
school.
No, they
or
don't look
no.
at that, because you own it. So once you move to that model, those are your students, they're under your school name. Those test scores, those behaviors, anything that goes into VADAR, the system for behaviors and incidents, it's all on your school. So they don't disconnect, even though you got a middle school over here and you have an elementary over school, you're still one school, and you still share the data, and the performance is still going to be looked at as a whole. In the
So
same
in that
way.
sense, that's a positive
Yes,
for us.
absolutely.
That's a positive for us, that we
Yes.
have that decreased population of the 7th and 8th grade. Like if you look at the data for the science,
The science exam.
the 8th grade
Absentee.
data, was, and the suspension,
Right.
absentee. There are many of these indicators that were much higher because of the 7th and 8th grade
Exactly.
population.
Right. And then when you look at your index for testing, if you have so many test outs, you're not going to make that matrix for at least testing 95% of your students. And we fell short, like 93% one year, 94% one year.
Yeah, you have to make the performance
have to-
index,
yes.
and we had a
Several.
lot of 7th and 8th graders who opted out of the test and refused the test. So we were not making the performance index at all.
No. And so that was another ding against us that brought us down.
that goes against you as well.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
it does. Yes.
So this year, does it look pretty good for kids not opting out, or?
We only, for ELA, only had 2.
Only 2 for ELA, so that's
Only for
good.
2 for
And we
ELA.
will-
We haven't received anything for math
Math
yet,
we
but
start this
that
week.
starts Wednesday.
Hmm.
So far, so good. Our index looks good. We
I
have
still think we should have got it passed.
no, they don't. No sympathy.
Yeah, I know, we've talked a lot about that.
State does not discriminate. So if there are any more questions or anything, we'll, yes.
As far as looking ahead to Square Fair,
Yes.
which is coming up. Are you folks planning on having tours in the building at that event?
We weren't, but that's something we can talk about.
Yeah, because
Yes.
last year, of course, things
Yes,
were still.
it was after the fact.
But this would be a great opportunity for school
Right, we
16 to
haven't,
have.
made any plans. That's something that we can talk about. It will require some resources and some time and hiring staff to be here, like a security office and stuff like that. So that's something that we can look into, but I'm not sure we have the resources at this time, but I will make a note of it.
Because I sent out some emails today to some of the schools, and in fact, I just before coming here sent one over to 19 because they've got the Strings for Success there, which would be an interesting group to get to play at school at the Square
band.
Fair, and also if we have tables at the. We last year, you folks participated in the tables we had at Square Fair, and if we do that again this year, if we can get the X-Cats there with their robot and get the Strings for Success there,
And I know we were having our students perform some songs or something too, so I know that they were going to be performing some things on that Saturday.
that would be good, because if we can get a lot of participation from all of our schools, the more things look positive in terms of teacher involvement and school involvement, the better it is for all the schools.
Right, I know, I remember, I still live in this community, actually, from Flanders, and I used to go to Square Fair all the time.
Yeah.
All the time, yeah, I love Square Fair. I brought my kids last year. I wonder who's doing the strings program this year, because the guy, Jose, passed away last year, and he did it for years. I wonder who's doing the strings.
I don't know. I just thought of that today when I was starting to send out letters to each of the schools
Because I know
that I'm
he used to do
involved
so
in.
many different schools and do the kids, and he used to do the program at Swan.
I kind of have an idea.
Last year, so I wonder who took up that.
Find out.
I'll give her a call.
Okay, great.